It's doing its thing.
I gotta click okay.
Welcome everybody to 2024 and our first morning show of the year. You know, we have an amazing two guests. I have Joe Tully from ATV On Demand, UTV On Demand, and Mike Walsh from Racecraft, Walsh Racecraft in Florida. We were supposed to do this show, Mike, like October last year.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Correct.
And there was a big hurricane. But everybody, as you're listening, thank these two gentlemen for coming on the first show of the year. We're kicking it off with a big bang, and we're going to talk AMA, motocross, hybrids, and just everything ATVs. I know Joe has a whole list of things he wants to ask you, Mike, and so do I. But we're going to get into it. First, I need to do my spiel for the sponsors. We need to thank Elka Suspension and all they do for us and all they do for the industry. They are the leader in suspension right now, dominating for the last 2 years and probably the last 20 in the ATV industry. GBC tires, they always are great for us. They do a great job helping ATV-TALK, bringing you these shows. So if you're looking for a good set of tires, jump on some GBCs. I know they're going to take good care of you. DBR Racing builds a multitude of different products for your ATV, from vortex boxes to battery boxes, skid plates, and I even seen them building some custom Nerf bars for a blaster the other day. So check those guys out as well. Good morning, gentlemen, and thank you for coming on the show. We're going to start off talking with you, Mike, about AMA motocross. Have you been involved in any of the rule changes, or have you talked to anybody about anything that's coming up in the 2024 season that we should be looking at?
I haven't got any inside lines on a lot of the rule changes or anything like that. Of course, I've talked to a bunch of the people that ride our product and support the company and that we support. But as far as the hybrid or the 250 or the 450 rules and stuff that's going on there, the different chassis and stuff, I've got a I've talked to people. I kind of got a couple inside lines. I know a couple of our good customers were fighting some of the they wanted to ban the hybrids, even not even full aftermarket chassis, but just even engine swaps in the pro-am class. So I know they overturned that. So that's kind of like where I'm at. I think they said they're gonna push it back 1 to 2 years, and then and put the rule back in effect. So that's kind of like where I'm at on that.
So they're going to not have the production rule in the Pro-Am class for 2024.
Correct. Correct.
Wow. That's
Oh,
I mean, I understand that you're in the business to build aftermarket stuff. Do you believe if we lose Yamaha, okay, because what I've been told, if they do away with the production rule in the motocross class, Yamaha's out. They're going to stop building that 450.
yeah, I've heard a lot of stuff like that. I also heard from one of the big AMA guys personally in private a private discussion, just me and him, and he told me that they would never allow hybrids in the pro class as long as the YFZR or Yamaha or any other manufacturer was producing a competitive sport quad. So that was like bottom line. That I know for a fact. That's what it was told to me. It was actually going back a year or two ago, but nothing's changed.
Do you agree with that?
Um, I mean, I have a lot of different mixed emotions about that. Like back, if you're gonna go into history, back 03, 4, where they come out with the pro production class, AMA. That's when I was still riding, and everybody, all the boys, Doug Gus, Tim Farr, everybody was getting production bikes going, the Z400, even the 400EX, and you remember that, Leonard and all that. But do I agree with it? I kind of never wanted the production rule. That was I kind of lost heart for the entire sport when they actually banned us. And they banned the creativity, which we gave the Japanese back when when Suzuki was involved in the racing program with TC and Wayne Henson and those guys, and Doug Gust when we came out with the DRZ 400. And I heard, I didn't see it, I don't know, but I literally have, I think that they took one of those to Japan. We made a few of them. And that's kind of what got Suzuki, when they wanted to race, they were looking at, and I don't know how much they took from it or whatever, but I know they had one over there or had one in there. So I absolutely don't agree with it. I understand where they're coming from.
Well, that's good that, understanding where they're coming from and not agreeing, at least you have a great foundation for that. Back to what you said about giving Japan the creativity. Look what the manufacturers did. I mean, I'm talking about the aftermarket manufacturers did in the 80s and 90s for the sport as far as keeping it alive with all the aftermarket stuff that we built. Roll, Lager, I can name, Lone Star, RPM. There's so many companies that came together that built our sport in that era to keep basically one race machine alive and developing it. At some point, we're going to have to come back to the creativity, as you said. And I'm just wondering when we're going to make that jump.
Yeah. We've got a lot of things going on in the shop right now. I'm releasing the Gen 3 Walsh Hybrid in a time where most of the people aren't really interested in it because of like what you just said with the production rule and with these rules. These parents, I watch these parents and the struggles of the kids going from 250 to 450, because that's our wheelhouse. We don't really mess with the smaller ATVs. We helped create that 250 mod class and schoolboy and all that, and then we're heavy into the 450 stuff and the hybrid stuff. So the real struggle is these parents going from the 250 to the 450. And my opinion, I mean, this is a great topic, because my opinion is, if we do run the hybrids at the highest level, I've got a chassis that I just came out with. It's not tested, but it's modular. It's based off the Yamaha chassis. All the Yamaha parts go on it. It's modular. You could take my bottom and put it on your stock YFZR. And the reason I come up with this, I wanted to simplify the sport. And when I say simplify it, we have one chassis, and you're going to be able to drop any motor into this chassis. So basically, if you have say you have a CRF 250 and you're racing it competitively, your kid is racing it, and you guys are going to go to, say, the 450A class or the Pro-Am class or the Pro class, you can simply remove that engine and put the 450 engine in. So now you don't have a 250 that you have to sell for peanuts on a dollar. You know, like a lot of these people are investing $30,000-$40,000 into a 250, and when they're done with that, they can't recoup their money and they can't use it anymore.
Let me interrupt you one quick second.
Go.
So you're telling me, so if I have a CRF 250 hybrid Walsh, I can buy a 450R motor or motorcycle motor and put it in place and race that next year.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, I don't know, and this is a whole different subject, but we're actually working on the electric, which I haven't really said publicly, but we're working on the Stark Varg in that same chassis. So that same chassis will be gas 250, gas 450, and electric is the plan. Now, it's all talk on a podcast on Sunday at 11 o'clock, but that's the vision. So I'm talking vision with you because we're talking history and vision. We're talking about what we think or how we feel about it. And that's how I feel about it. I feel like my company's come to the place of time where we want to simplify this instead of complicate it. And when I say simplify and complicate, and I know you know, Leonard, that you have we have hundreds and maybe even thousands of fixtures for the Z400, the 250R, the 400X, the 05 TRX, the 06 and up TRX, the KFX, the Can-Am, the KTM, where's the stop? We have a million different bikes. And you know what? Guess what? I'm a floor AMA with this one. Where are those manufacturers? Where are those sport quads? They're not being built. They're not being built. So great, Yamaha is doing well right about, but guess what? You know, and here's my thoughts. We should have never took away the hybrid rule, because doing that, we gave the industry to the production to the big money people, and guess what? They didn't respect the industry, and now they're gone. Or that industry was too small for them. Whatever it is, it didn't work out. So
Mike, they've never have respected us. Okay. No. Every time the factory comes in, they disrupt the whole flow from the people that are in the industry, and then sideline us so that there's no. What I'm trying to say is, they didn't care about Walsh Racing. They didn't care about Duncan Racing. They didn't care about Baldwin. They don't care about anybody but the factories. And they actually tried to eliminate it. So you look at what Polaris is doing with buying up all these companies and locking you into buying it from Polaris. They're eliminating the aftermarkets, and nobody's out there fighting for us to say, hey, these are the developers. These are the guys that are making it happen. And Joe, I don't know where you stand on any of this because you're silent over there. Or froze, maybe. I don't know.
You guys are flowing.
So what I'm saying is I agree with you. I'm not against the factories, but I'm not for them either, because they're not helping us. They're not doing anything to make the ATV industry stronger or better. Yes, I applaud Yamaha for building the 700 and the 450. I don't applaud them for bending the knee to companies that are forcing them into building machines that make it more difficult for us to provide product to the industry with emission rules that are totally bogus and bullshit. And we can prove it time and time over, because they don't need to do this stuff. And you go buy a factory Yamaha 450 from the showroom, and it runs horrible, dies, doesn't operate correctly, has weaknesses built in because of the government, not because of Yamaha. And we have to stand up and fight against this because it's affecting not just the ATV industry, it's affecting so many others. The automotive industry is getting beat to death too, because you brought up EVs, dude. The only way I would go that direction is because of what Joe Tully said on my show, a month or so ago, Joe?
Yeah, it was
about having a park in the neighborhood where you can have electric motorcycles, electric ATVs, electric go-karts, and run it in a neighborhood. Just like you're lighting up your baseball field, you're lighting up the motocross park, and you have no noise because of the electric. And I agree with that. That's one of the only places that I agree with it. If we're going to go try to run outdoor motocross with electric, I'm not a fan. You're not going to race a 2-hour woods race on an electric quad because it's just not going to live. You can't do a desert race with it because you're not going to go 500 miles on an electric quad. It's just not going to happen. We don't have the technology.
I have a question for Mike. So, Mike, what were you getting at when you were talking about all the different fixtures that you have for all the different manufacturers? And I don't remember your exact words, like you were going to put the AMA on their head with this. So were you kind of leading into saying that you're trying to work on this new Gen 3 chassis as a singular platform to carry everything forward, as opposed to making all these parts for all these different machines? Or were you making more of a point of that these machines were here and you developed all these parts and now they're gone?
Well, two good questions, and they're both right. That they we're trying to simplify it for Walsh Racecraft so we could sell one chassis, one style A-arms, one swing arm, basic fixtures, work on those fixtures, develop those fixtures better, faster, make them easier to use. But also all the money in R&D that's went into all these other fixtures are sitting in my storage area.
Not making money,
Listen, the TRX 450R, we barely sell anything for, like nothing really now since the Yamahas took over. And I helped with that takeover because Chad Weenan, signed with Yamaha, and Cox was his mechanic. So Cox was here, Ryan Cox, Chad, and we stayed here for 3 months developing that Yamaha. And people were already developing it before that, but let's really face the facts, as Chad Weenan pretty much put the YFZR on the map with the 8 championships and all of that. And so we helped with that development. And I have to applaud Honda for helping us in 07. I had factory support and Team Green, Jimmy White and those guys. That was a great deal for us. But now that all that is gone, we're left picking up we're left trying to provide and manufacture in a different era, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But is this cycle just going to continue, for 50 years? The same cycle of the factories coming in, they're leaving, they're coming in, they're leaving. I think, I'm not saying it would be, I don't really know. I'm not saying it would be better or worse. I know that we had some really good years with the factories in here and involved, and it was a blessing to us, and we all got to live our own personal little dream of doing factory stuff. I mean, it's not Supercross, it's not motocross or anything like that. It was on a smaller level, but it was a level for ATV, a level that may never be seen again. And I know I'm talking about in the past, and I know that Joel Hetrick and Chad and even some GNCC guys, I know they still get a lot of support from Yamaha, and like we said, we love Yamaha, and Leonard's said good things about Yamaha, but I don't think it has anything to do with Yamaha. And it's back to the kind of this situation that with the AMA, it's like, why why not let the aftermarket develop? Why not let them race in the pro class? Why not? You know why? Because we have an entire gate full of Yamahas. That's kind of boring, no development.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's no there's no more Hondas. Those guys retired. The Suzuki guys, unfortunately, Molander, rest in peace. God bless. And the other guy that rode it, I believe he retired as well. So there's all Yamahas. There's no Suzukis. There's no Hondas, no Cowies, no Can-Ams, nothing. It's all Yamaha now. And, it's just like going to a GNCC. You got two guys that ride Hondas and everybody else rides Yamaha. Fortunately on the West Coast, it's a mixed bag of Honda, Yamaha, more Hondas than Yamahas, but still that's slowly changing on the availability of parts. I want to shift the conversation a little bit. So, Mike, you developed you're going to be right in with this, Joe. So, are you ready? Are you ready, Joe?
I'm ready.
Okay. So, Mike, you build a platform that is universal. All right. Why can't we reach out to a manufacturer? And I'm not necessarily saying one of the big four.
Oh, you're stealing my question.
No, I'm not stealing your question. I'm going to let you freaking go with this. Why can't we reach out to a manufacturer, get a motor from them, take your chassis and make a production machine out of this and sell this to the general public? Now we have the second manufactured machine through another manufacturer or through a collective group of aftermarket guys that have gotten together to fight this.
Yeah, I've been approached numerous times and here recently with another aftermarket manufacturer. I don't really want to blow the top off of his gig, but he when he saw my Gen 3, he got all excited about doing a production bike, and that's not out of the question. But the last thing I ever knew about a production ATV to race against in pro was you needed 100 units. Now that's it. To me, that's the gray area. 100 units. What do we need? 100 titles? What do we need? 100 frames? Do we need 100 units sitting in a room somewhere? What is 100 units?
To my knowledge, you have to have them on the showroom floor or in circulation.
Okay, so right. So that's a lot of money.
Do you think we could build 100 units for less than $20,000 a unit?
Yeah. I mean, you could do anything, right? I mean, with the right minds put together, I mean, I think it's very doable, and in the amount, the volume, if the volume's there. Here's the thing. I was just talking to a gentleman looking at a Chad Wienen race machine for sale, and do you know how much a used Chad Wienen race machine is going for?
I don't.
It's much greater than 20,000.
Right. I know how much I sell a unit that I build, whether it be a Honda, Yamaha, Banshee, LT500. I know how much I sell them for.
Right.
And it's much, much greater than 25. Right. So, I mean, some people think, oh, it's not worth it. Well, you go build what I build. You go build what Mike Walsh builds. You go build what these people build, and the time, the effort, the amount of product evaluation that's went into putting this together, and you tell me you can do it for less than that. You can't.
No, you can't. You can't do it for less. And so it's a volume and a money deal. And can it be done? I'm sure it can be done, but it can't be done on my level. It would have to be on a bigger level. We would need a mag group. We would need somebody with the passion and with the ability to put a big deal. So Okay, so you've heard the story before, but when U.S. Highland flew in and we built them a chassis and for their V-twin 100 horsepower manually shifted ATV, basically it was a 450 with two 500 jugs on it, and I still have the motor upstairs, but we built them a chassis for that, and they bought Cannondale at one point, the remnants, what was left of Cannondale. And so they were trying to do almost exactly what you guys, that question that was brought up, they were trying to do that before they died in a plane crash. So is it possible to do? I'm sure it is possible to do. Would I like to be involved in it? Absolutely. Would we need a strategic plan and some some corporate people involved, or I say corporate, but some shareholders and some people that were capable of putting down a lot of money? I think we would. It would have to be a massive deal for 100.
Lenny and I were
Joe.
talking. Lenny and I were talking about this the other night, and hopefully I have my facts straight. We recently went and last year and rode Arctic Cat's latest 4x4 ATVs. Obviously, they haven't had a sport offering since the DBX 400 was discontinued. That was built by Suzuki. But in their factory in Minnesota, Arctic Cat makes some things for some other companies, and I don't mean just rebadge tracker off-road 4x4s that go to Bass Pro Shops. Like they make, I don't remember what it was, but they make stuff for other people. So it almost got me thinking the other night when me and Lenny were talking, like, what if somebody like Mike Walsh, who can design, a totally bitchin' chassis, because to tool up and build a production line that could mass produce ATVs, that is a huge financial undertaking. But what if you go to a pre-existing manufacturer, and like Arctic Cat was the first one to pop into mind, because it's like they've got everything they need there. They don't have jigs and fixtures, but all the welding equipment, all the powder coat equipment, everything is there. They're probably looking for a way to make more money. And they probably don't want to spend the time in R&D to bring a sport quad to market. I can tell you for a fact, every manufacturer we talk to has no interest in bringing a sport quad to market. But it's like, what if you design it and get a company like Arctic Cat to build the chassis, to bring the costs down, to make it more obtainable, more affordable for the average guy? And, as far as power plants, like Suzuki's just sitting here doing nothing, and they're not going to bring a quad to market. But what about that RM 450 engine? Like it's old by dirt bike standards, but at this point, is the RM 450 engine a better engine than the Yamaha engine? Because even if it's 10 years old by dirt bike standards, that makes it 10 years newer than the YFZ engine, which came out in 2009 and probably wasn't state of the art at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and back to the U.S. Highland deal, they wanted us to build the first X amount of chassis, and then they wanted to get the chassis built in China, to be honest. So I see where you're going with all that, and I think that's possible. The thing that jumped out at me was when you said you've talked to the other manufacturers and they don't want to bring a sport quad to the market, and I understand that, because right, we're all in this to make money, basically. So if they bring a quad to the market, they need to sell it. How many do they need to sell? I don't know, 10,000 a year. I don't know what the number is that they need to hit to be profitable. But in my opinion, the reason that we're blessed and we're able to do what we do as aftermarket people is because there is a niche there. And when I say a niche there, let's just pretend we had a brand. Let's just say we have 100 race ATVs ready to go, and they're going for 20 $5,000 a piece. Would people buy them? That's a whole nother.
In the chat, 50 Magic just said definitely. Okay. I didn't give him a price, but he said he would buy it. So I believe, Mike, in my heart, I believe this in my heart, the people that are doing this that want more are going to buy what we build because they love the sport, because they know that we're going to build it quality. Now, I want to go back a step with you on your chassis that you're building to help Walsh. So am I going to be able to buy my 250 chassis for my CRF and then be able to bolt my KTM 450 in it? Or do I have to go with another Honda?
No, you could change brands.
So are you going to offer like a frame mount kit? I mean, how are you going to have to change? Obviously, you'll have to change motor mounts for the different engines. How are you going to accommodate a motor mount set for every engine imaginable on the market, or what is it going to be limited to? Because I doubt you're going to have a motor mount.
Of course, there's limits, right?
Right.
So basically, the chassis is modular, and there is no fixed motor mounts except for your swing arm pivot bolt. But I offer different hips, the back of the bike, for different pivot bolt locations. So you may have to change out your hip. You might have a KTM hip. You might have to change it to a CRF hip, but it's not a lot of different hips. The KTM engine is very odd. So I don't know how familiar you guys are with pivot bolt heights, counter shaft heights, stuff like that. But the KTM in the stock motorcycle, from my findings, the counter shaft center line is below the pivot bolt center line, and we can't have that in an ATV. So in order to get the motor in there, it takes a little bit more. But to answer the question, there will be limited changes. So you will have to have a motor mount kit. Yes, you will have to have a motor mount kit, which will be 2 lower motor mount brackets for your lower motor mount, 2 for your mid, and 2 for your head stay. Other than that, yes, you'll have to change the pipe. You'll have to change the intake and all this. It's not going to be, as simple as, some other things, but it can be done. It will be done, and it will be done simpler than it was done in years past.
But it's still cheaper than building a complete new bike.
Exactly. Right.
You're not having to go out and buy the complete chassis, an axle, a carrier, shock.
Right. Exactly. Shocks are the big one for me, because what I've learned about shocks and different leverage ratios and all that throughout the past 25 years of doing this is it doesn't really matter if you have a better leverage ratio or if you have a better progression or things like that. What matters is the sheer numbers. So basically what I'm talking about with that is, if everybody's running YFZRs and every shock manufacturer is working on that is working on Walsh A-arms on a YFZR, Walsh linkage on a YFZR, and everybody's copied the Walsh A-arms and the Walsh linkage, well, now everybody's working on all the same stuff. So the shock manufacturers are going to get it really, really good. And that's what's that's what you're seeing now. And these kids are going so fast, and the show is so great now because everything is working. Okay. So Joe said that it came out in 2009 or whatever, the YFZR, they've been working on the YFZR for that long, 20 years. I don't, what's the math on that? What 15 years, however long it was out. So, and they got it good. So basically that's my thing. Let's keep the 3 shocks the same, and they'll continue to get better and better and better. Yeah. Okay. So I do offer a few linkages for the YFZR, a couple different pull rod lengths or whatever, but the general, rotating knuckle and pull rod and all this is the same. It's an 18, 19-inch shock in the rear, something pretty long, holds a lot of fluid, works well, progression's good, stands straight up, doesn't take a lot of room. It's a good part. It's a good piece. The front end works well. Yeah, we got LTR spindles, but all that stuff is slowly developing into what it is now today. And Chad and Joel have 10, I think they got a combined 10 national championships on a YFZR at this point. So yeah, with the new chassis, we're hopefully gonna keep everything the same. So you're not gonna have to sell your shocks. That was a great point.
Yeah, I mean, it's anything we could do to keep the price down is what we're talking about here, because the I think the time of building a new machine every year is quickly vanishing.
Yeah, I think so too. These kids are already back down here in Florida training. I think Joel's 10 or 2 weeks in already on training. Chad's 2 weeks in. They've already started, and it seems like the season has just ended.
Yeah, I don't think that they can take as much time off because their product development I don't think is the same anymore. I believe, like you just said, their stuff is dialed in, and they're making minuscule changes from 2023 to 2024 because it's already so good.
You hit the nail directly on the head. I have made some stuff that isn't talked about for a couple of my guys, and yes, it's different, but it's very slightly different. Like the average guy would have no idea it was different. So yeah, they're making tiny changes, and that's on my side of it, which is the component side. And so I'm sure they're making tiny shock changes, but they're not making anything huge. They're tweaking, they're different cams, they're different throttle bodies, things like this. They're dynoing here and there, and then they're going to race.
And I think some of that is, the dyno is going to tell you something, but your best information is lap times and track time. How the rider can get the traction to the ground or the power to the ground to move forward. The dyno can't teach you that. The lap times can teach you.
No, it's just another tool.
Right.
Just a tool.
Yeah. So I think that we have massive gains to be made. Also, when we were talking about building a production machine, would you be able to take that chassis and put that 2-stroke 300 motor in it?
Absolutely.
So the average guy could call up and buy that and put his KTM 2-stroke in it and go ride it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, kind of what another thing that got me and my brother looking at this more heavily is obviously, like you said, the 2-stroke, but so JB is selling a lot of conversion kits. RP is selling a lot of conversion kits. Okay. So the conversion kit industry is we don't really specialize in the conversion kit deal. That's not my style, but it's a lot of people are doing it. So that's kind of like what poked us to get going on this new venture. Was not to kind of join it or not to kind of fight it, just kind of throw our to refine it, I guess you would say. So right. And like Joe said, yes, you are going to need a motor mount kit. I have talked to RP about his conversion kit for the YFZR, but when we're talking about maybe doing a collaborate there, we're offering his kit with our chassis or something for that reverse head Yamaha, because he makes both the kits, the 250 and then that could be installed on our chassis, or refining that kit a little bit more. I don't know. We just kind of talked real quick about it, and we're kind of like, because I don't want to disrespect. I want to respect. I have people copy my stuff all the time, and it annoys me. It's not that it's wrong, or it's not that it's right. It's just, to me, it's annoying, and the respect, and it's not. So I personally reached out to RP, and because I want to be respectful. I want to be a legitimate person that is not sneaking around. So I told him what our plans were, and if he wanted to be involved, and we try to make something happen. But yes, you will need kits, but all those kits will fit the same chassis. So I think this is more of like a platform. It's like a blank canvas that will utilize all your existing componentry, shocks, A-arms, steering stem, swing arms, because that's a lot of and I learned this from the 250R. 250R stuff was so far off, kind of like the roll stuff, that you couldn't just bolt the 250R stem in. You had to have a roll stem, or you couldn't just bolt a legger stem in. You had to have a Walsh stem, and I don't think that that's going to work in the future. I think we're to refine this stuff.
So if I have a Walsh frame, my roll stem is going to fit the Walsh frame.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Stem, or
like, you could take my parts from my frame, and you can convert your Yamaha frame to one of my Gen 3 hybrid frames. You could still use some of the Yamaha parts if you wanted to. You would have to change the bottom, and you would have to change the hip, but you could use the sides and the front. You see?
Right.
And I guess a question I had real quick, just thinking about, the average guy at home, because I'm, not looking at it from the let's build a $30,000 bike perspective, but like the average home builder, let's say the guy who wishes he could get a new 250R, but no manufacturer is ever going to build them a new two-stroke. If I had a bone stock, if I went and bought a 2024 YFZ 450R off the showroom floor, and I was like, I want to build a brand new two-stroke sport quad, and then I went and got myself a YZ 250 engine, like two-stroke 250. What am I looking at as far as what do I have to purchase from Walsh to make that work?
Okay, so you'd have to purchase the frame bottom, an engine mount kit, and you may not have to change the hips. You might just be able to do the whole thing with the frame bottom. I haven't done that one yet. I wouldn't personally do that one just because it's not counterbalanced. But say it was a KTM, that's a good one. But if they did, so yeah, you'd probably have to purchase one thing, and then as this thing refines, hopefully we will have pipes available. You see what I mean? Hopefully we will have all the bolt-ons, maybe an air boot kit, stuff like this, or maybe other manufacturers will make this stuff too. But with this platform, I believe the YFZR is now the 250R. And I got another shot at making this better and the best that I can before I die. You know what I mean? So like I did the 50R, did the LTR. Now I'm doing the YFZR. Now I'm going to take everything I learned for the past 25 years. I'm putting it into this project. That's basically what the person's buying. So we're trying to simplify. And the other thing is Walsh Racecraft is never caught up on their parts. So it's like, we don't need the excess business. What we need is more organization. We need easier, simplify this deal. So, so that's kind of what this whole thought process is, trying to simplify it, make it easier for, like you said, the end user, that he could do his own do-it-yourself project and come up with his own YZ250 or say Banshee in a YZR.
Yeah, that was the very next motor I would have posed, and it was either going to be that or the YZ250. But yeah, I see all these $6,000 Banshees, and it's like, yeah, it's a really fast motor and a really ill-handling machine. So yeah, if you could drop that motor in a YFZ 450R, what an incredible bike! Just unbelievably fast, and it turns. Imagine it.
I'm right there with you. The Banshee is the one I get a lot of questions about. A lot of people want this YFZR Banshee.
Send me the chassis. I'll build one together, and then we'll send it back to you, and you can pick it apart.
That's right. That's 100%. We got guys here.
Yeah, because I have to do it correctly. You got to fit the pipes, and you got to be able to fit the pipes to make them make power still. Set it up with an air intake system that's going to work. I mean, there is a lot to make that system work, and then you'll have the guys that want to put a single carb on it that doesn't work.
Well, this is let me stop you guys right there. This is perfect how Leonard said this. This is exactly what I want. I want to come up with a platform. I want to sell that to a consumer. That consumer is going to take that platform to Duncan. Duncan's going to he's going to rig that thing, like he's going to do the pipes, he's going to do the intake, he's going to do the dynoing, he's going to do the seat of the pants on it, he's going to get it ready to go. And that's how we're doing this as a team. I don't know if you guys are into aviation at all or even boats, but like on the aviation thing, there's a place called Vans Aircraft, and they come out with the RV. Well, the RV is a kit. I mean, you got to realize that there's people buying these kits, and they're very, very successful. And they're going home and they're building airplanes and they're flying them. And they got it down to a science like this. And in that way, Walsh Racecraft doesn't have to make the entire part. Walsh Racecraft can supply most of it or some of it, and then the end user can finish it. I think that's the way to get the hybrids out there. The only feasible, logical way, and that's kind of the way we were doing it in the early 2000s and stuff. With these builders like Lost Creek Cycle, East Coast ATV. That was the people on our side, and then you had your Midwesterners and your California guys and all that. But I think the end user is going to have to be heavily involved.
Yeah, that's the problem. From what I'm seeing is there's less people that are willing to put the time in to build their machines. That's why they come to a company like us and they roll it in and say, this is what I want. This is the colors. Call me when it's done.
Truth. I think there's a lot of truth to that.
The problem is like in the chat, people are upset because it takes so long to get product that they don't understand that we have a limited workforce, which I'm assuming you're having trouble getting people like we are that we can count on as labor. They won't put the phone down long enough, or they want absorbent wages because they think they're worth a gazillion dollars. And, we're working 7 days a week. Granted, I'm on the show right now, but when I get done here, I'll go have breakfast with my wife, and then I'm going to go out in the shop.
Exactly. You're right. You're 100% right. Now, can this turns into a crazy subject with payroll, with workers, with insurances, with the government, with how we got to where we're at. But I mean, right now it's been the hardest for us to have legitimate, good employees that are reliable.
One of the guys in the chats just said that the U.S. consumer wants turnkey race quads that they don't have to wrench on, and to finish the build. They want to just be able to roll it to the starting line. And I agree with it. And that's kind of what we need to focus on. And that's kind of where I think you're going with this, is you're going to be able to have a Walsh base kit, ship it to your guy, and your guy finish it. One of the guys also is, Mark Notman. That guy's super busy.
He's doing I just heard about this guy. I mean, I've been in the industry a long time, but not really in the GNC side of it. But I just actually followed him on Instagram, and because I was talking with Hunter Hart, and he was telling me that this Mark Notman guy does his work, and you're seeing more and more people like this. You're seeing, I don't know if you guys know Pierce Performance. He does Don Glada's work, and more. I'm just kind of touching on this subject, and then you got Mark Baldwin with the Ford crew. Right, you're seeing a lot of these builders. You got your manufacturers, and then you got your builders. So these builders are getting very, very valuable, and always have been. But you're right. He's doing I don't know how many, but he's got to be doing 4 or 5 of the top riders' machines.
Right. And so Lauren and I are older, and we're not as involved with the racing anymore, but we're still building more complete machines with the time it takes, plus the normal portion of it. And we can't even keep up. I mean, I can't even begin to keep up. And, I've said this before openly. I could turn the phone off today and turn it on mid-2025 for the work, not the sales, just the work. And I don't say that because we would be making money doing that. We would physically just be working, and building machines. In the chat, they're talking about not being able to get specific parts. And I get it. And I understand why, because when you can't keep up with the demand, what do? I mean, you are what, 2 years back?
I mean, on some stuff we've been, we're really catching up. I mean, I think we're closing those windows down pretty rapidly. I think we're within a few months right now. But we were years out on 250R stuff, but we've caught up a lot. And and that's the other thing. What do we do? Do we stop building certain parts, or do we still offer them and just say we don't know when we're going to be able to get to them? So we still offer them, but we're not going to give you a timeline.
And I believe that has to happen I think that it has to happen that way, because there are certain parts that you want to sell, but you can't stop the parts that are selling faster and more often to build those, and lose money to build something in a small quantity. And I know that the people that are listening to this are frustrated with that. I'm sorry. I have to stay in business so that I can build that part for you at a lull. And Joe, you're killing me with this. You haven't moved. You're a statue. They don't understand the struggles of business in manufacturing. Mike, I know you fight it every day, and so do we. I want to build that part for that guy so bad, but I can't not do this job, these 3 jobs over here that are the money makers to build that.
It goes back to that other viewer who was, because I'm not looking at the chat, but the viewer who was talking about, we want to be able to go just buy a race bike off a showroom floor. I mean, and that's going to be part of it, I think, is, like right now, you can go buy a YFZ 450R. You can get whatever part for it. Honda fans who are still Honda loyal, who bleed red, that company doesn't care about you. They're discontinuing their parts. They could give two shits, you know. So if you want to be able to just go buy a quad and just have parts, readily available for that quad, that's going to take at least a small mass production to make that happen. And I don't think there's any way that the aftermarket's going to be able to just like, unless like Mike or somebody like that takes this up, where it's like you can just order a bike and it comes to you completely done, built, ready to go. Which
that's what they're talking about wanting in the chat is they want to
right,
be able to call Walsh or Duncan and say, I want this machine, and they just roll it out the door.
You're right, but most consumers want everything for under $10,000, and we may not be talking about the people that are in the chat, but we know the people that I deal with online, they want it all, they want it now, they want it dirt cheap. You ain't going to get another decent sport quad for under $10,000. You think that's going to happen? You're a dreamer. Now, Honda could do a fuel injected 400EX and it should be under $10,000 when they're doing a CRF 250 dirt bike that's fuel injected, talking about their recreational bike, not their CRF motocross based bike for under $6,000. The only way you're going to have it readily available is more turnkey production bikes. And unfortunately, right now, just these manufacturers don't care about sport quads. They don't care what the used market is. They don't care. They're focused. The market has shifted to a non-profit made at the point of sale for a machine. The industry is now moved to the dealers don't make money selling units. It's all about selling side-by-sides that are $20,000, $30,000 and up, and selling warranties and accessories at the time of sale. And that's how a dealer makes their money. So the entire economic structure of the power sports industry from the major OEMs has moved away from what will make a sport ATV viable and sustainable in the market.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I like the way I like what he said there. I think it is all about the dollar, and it's all about it. He's right. I mean, it is.
So we've had a great conversation about this, and everybody in the chat, I thank you for your input. We are going to address this again and get deeper into it. I don't have all the answers for everybody in the chat about what product they can buy, how long it takes to build, and how many people work at each company. I know that in our company, the main two players are my brother and I. Okay. And everybody thinks how large we are when there's two guys in almost 60 years old. My brother's 60 and I'm 57. And we're doing all that work 7 days a week. We can't sustain that. Mike, you're getting older. Joe, I don't even want to know where you are at age wise. It's probably close to 100, but we won't go there. Love you, Joe. So I want to shift gears a bit, Mike, and I want your opinion. Joe, I want your opinion also. And because we're winding into our time, there was a headline in a news story that came out that KTM sold a portion of their shares off to a company. I don't even remember the name of it. And they've switched almost all of their manufacturing to China. This is the big question. I know everybody wants to make more money, but are we going to sacrifice making more money versus quality? I know that from Austria to China, there's got to be a big difference in the quality. You can't make the same quality stuff in China that you can in Austria. You can't make the same quality stuff in the United States. So Mike, what is your take on that? Joe, you're going to get your turn to answer that as well.
I get approached daily by Chinese companies to make our parts, first of all. Second of all, we like to run about 10 to 12 people at our shop. That's about as big as our shop can be. for the size of what we do. Mainly the two biggest players are me and my brother. The same as what you were saying. Now, what do I think about that? I think I think this is a huge conversation because I think it brings me back to the conversation we were talking about when we said what about our employees and not wanting to get huge money to do mediocre work. Maybe they're experiencing that same thing in Austria. I don't know, or wherever KTM is made. I heard they're laying off like 300 people.
300
right?
people.
Yeah. So terrible. KTM makes an amazing product. I have saw some Chinese stuff. China is getting a lot better. I have also heard that the cost of shipping now is taking over the savings that you're going to save money wise. So it's kind of alarming for me that they did go, that KTM did go so strongly into China. I've heard also Honda's in China. Honda's getting some stuff from China. Other top manufacturers are getting stuff from China as well. And to touch on no, I don't think that the quality is going to be the same. Because we do it for passion, the love of the sport, all this. They're doing it for the bottom line. They're a lot bigger than we are. So do I think it's wrong? I mean, I think the product development will suffer. I think I don't agree with it. I wouldn't do it. I haven't done it. But I understand it. And I think that the globe is getting a lot smaller than it used to be. And with me saying that, I mean, I think with the internet and everything, I think that China ain't so far away as it was 20 years ago. I actually just purchased a Chinese router. I'm sorry. I didn't want to purchase it, but it was a lot of money for the project that I was doing it on. I run all Haas CNC machines, USA stuff, but for this one particular project that we were doing, it didn't really make sense to spend $250,000 when you could spend $100,000, with this. So I get it. Do I think the KTM is going to suffer because of it? Probably not. I mean, I heard they weren't putting it on race bikes. I heard it was, high level bikes. I heard it was for more like recreational leveled bikes and stuff. So I don't know. I don't think it's a sign that they're in trouble. I think it's probably just a corporate move.
Joe?
Obviously we, separating the politics out from the capability, obviously we're a capitalist society, even though 30% of our countrymen say they have capitalism at this point. I'm just saying, let's get it out of the way. Like, we don't like communism, and the Chinese government's communist. But aside from that, they're just people. The Chinese people are just people who want to make a wage, take care of their families, want to make a living. If I want the most boutique, parts I can get that, are built by people that just live and breathe ATVing, I don't want to call Walsh Racecraft and get a set of A-arms that were made in China. I want TIG welded, heat treated, American sourced chromoly, built by an American in America. So I think there's definitely the time and place for that. Now, back to the go back to the 60s. If you go back to the 60s, we're less than 20 years out of World War II. And no, Lenny, unlike you, I was not around in the 60s. we we as Americans used to be like, oh, I don't want that pot metal Japanese crap. It was how terrible Japan was. And there was probably a lot of truth in that. They were building fighter planes out of wood in World War II. But you fast forward to the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and today, and now people are like, I don't want to buy that North American Polaris garbage. I'm not saying what I think. I'm just saying what I hear consumers say. I'm not a side-by-side guy, so I have no opinion. But you hear Americans saying that, I don't want to buy that Polaris crap. I want Japanese built machines because they know how to engineer and build things. So our perception of what came out of Japan has completely turned a 180, over 40, 50 years. China's coming up much quicker. What we used to see at the Indy Dealer Expo was like pot metal, disposable, ill-handling crap. And, there's a difference between a company like if Mike all of a sudden said, I'm going to do a cheap line of Walsh parts, I'm doing Walsh budget line, and he had it made in China, he's going to have it built by a factory with a factory, foreman, supervisor, whatever. Mike's not going to be there to oversee it. If a company like KTM goes into China, or Honda goes into China, they're probably building their own factory. They're hiring their own people to oversee the production. The production's being done to their standards, not the standards of that Chinese sweatshop. So I don't see a huge reason why, if it's being properly overseen by the major OEM, that the quality couldn't turn out good. If the process is good, if the materials being sourced are good, if the labor is skilled, what's the difference? If all those things are in play. For the people who are wanting turnkey quads, like I want to buy a quad turnkey, I don't want it to cost over 10 grand. That's a lot of people on the YouTube space. Well, you ain't getting that out of Japan. You ain't getting that out of North America. It's not going to happen. If you want to see affordable machines for the average person come back to the market at this point, chances are they're coming out of China. Whether you like their politics or not, that's probably our best hope for the next affordable mass-produced sport quad. Hopefully they'll hire Mike Walsh and pay him $500,000 to help them develop it.
Okay, Joe, I respect everything you said. I agree with a lot of it. Mike, I agree with a lot of what you said. The biggest problem that you have, Joe, is when I take my Walsh arms over there and they build me a set of lower standard, more production-based recreational arms, the front of the company is building that product. The back door of the company is duplicating it and selling it online for 50% or 30% or even 70% of what Mike is trying to sell it. So if you look at your Heim manufacturers, your bolt manufacturers, your brake line manufacturers, you look at all these guys that have went to China and they've done all this stuff. Some of these guys are now out of business because China took their part, made it cheaper, sold it through the back door. So now we're buying these products from China instead of having our US-based manufactured companies selling it. Let me finish before you interrupt me, please. And all of this is happening. Your steel exhaust companies, your bearings. I mean, there's just so many things that, Mike, I know you get these emails too, where they're just mass producing all of this stuff that was made by US companies for US companies. Now, yes, we were strict on how it is, but what everybody doesn't realize, when you have a Chinese company, the Chinese government has an office in that building, and the Chinese government runs that company. The people that we're talking about taking care of, just the Chinese people, they're not in charge. that foreman of that building is ran by the CCP. So what happens is the CCP takes that product, develops it through that company, and again, sells it out the back door. You're never going to stop that. Okay. It's just not going to happen. So you take the Fat Boy 4 exhaust that's made from different products, stainless, thicker, heavier, more durable. You're going to take it over there. They're going to thin it out. They're going to lighten it up. They're going to make it less quality, and they're going to sell it out the back door looking identical to what you sell. And you've just lost all your integrity. So the Walsh arms that are the pro race arms just lost integrity because of that.
But again, I think that goes back to like we're talking about the difference between if an American company sent a part over there to have a pre-existing factory where they're just taking up the manufacturing of it. That's one thing versus, Mike decides I'm going to move Walsh Racecraft to China. I'm going to run the shop in China. I'm going to source the materials for my shop in China. Like if he's there to, if he's there to source the materials,
that's not how it works in China.
Is it somebody else's factory your parts are being made in, or is it your factory the parts are being made in that you built over there?
CCP owns a portion of your factory when you go to China.
Well,
you have an office in your building. So we have Walsh Racecraft in China. Okay. And Mike owns a portion of it, but they have an office and they're actually telling Mike what he can do. Do you see what happens in the NBA with they're not allowed to talk bad about China because all their shirts and jerseys are made over there?
Yeah, but I don't
they say something bad, they shut them off.
I think that the American consumer can buy a $15,000 KTM next year made by brand X in China for $5,000. They're going to sell a shit ton of them. And if the manufacturers don't want to deal with that problem, don't go to China. There's plenty of poor countries in Africa, South America. Like, we're going way off on a tangent. But we're getting flooded by 10 million people over the last 3 years. So let's put manufacturing in South America. This is a global issue. It's not really, Yeah,
but if I go to Mexico and I have product built, it's not being stolen. They're not selling it out the back door. They're selling it to me, my spec, and I don't have to own the facility down there. And, I might lose a little bit of product out the back door because, it just happens.
You got to keep the cartels happy.
Well, whatever. But they're not stealing my part, making it cheaper, and then selling it on the internet for less money.
Well, this is going to be KTM's problem. If everything you're saying is true, then we're going to see half-price knockoff KTMs in the next few years, and a lot of people will probably love to buy them. And KTM will pound the table, and that'll be their problem to clean up.
Every product that's made in China, if you bring it up for a specific American, Mike, you can jump in anytime. You can bring it up on the internet, and then you can find it from a Chinese manufacturer for less money. Every part. It doesn't matter what it is. Okay. And the companies that did control it, like Trail Tech used to have some awesome lights built. I mean, the Eclipse, they were really badass lights. Well,
That's right. And now you can go to China and you can buy really bad. Like I have a buddy who has a side-by-side, and I don't advocate for it, but you can go spend $500, whatever on a light bar from a more reputable brand that's probably made in China anyway, or you can just buy the Chinese brand and it costs a quarter as much. And according to my test drivers, Chinese light bar hasn't failed yet. I'm not advocating for it, but everybody in America wants high wages. Well, if you walk out of Kroger with one small plastic bag of groceries, it's $100. That means if you pay that guy $25 an hour, he had to work, 3/4 of the day to pay for it after taxes. So people want a lot of money, but shit costs a lot of money. So I
get it. And David Ham just in the chat just said that the young American consumer doesn't care where it's built. They just want young or they just want cheaper, affordable, quality product. Well,
and they always did that. They
cheaper's
always
not
did.
quality. Cheaper's not
And that's-
quality.
But
Mike, is
right,
cheaper quality?
but what
Yeah,
you
a lot to
wait,
it.
sorry.
Again,
No,
we couldn't hear you.
I'm processing.
Is cheaper quality?
Absolutely. I mean,
No, cheaper is quality.
the thing of it is one or two things has to happen. America's got to have to get off their rear ends and get to work for a reasonable amount of money, and do it in America, you know, or we're gonna have to charge more. It's going, look, an F-250 diesel was 60 grand. Now it's 100 grand in like 4 years.
Yeah,
My product's the
not
same.
all, but that's not all labor from America. You're looking at our government. Well, we're getting off into politics. And I don't want to do
That's what I'm saying. It's government. It's all how this deal is run. That's why people are going to China. You know what I mean? Like, because there's a reason why everything's happening, in my opinion. There's
an underlying discussion that we're not going to have on this show.
Exactly. There's more stuff going on.
Right. Joe, I'm not against you. I want to clarify that, because I know that there was a difference in opinion. I just know that the Chinese market and how it works.
Well, you're just bringing up a side note. Like, your question to us was, how do we feel about the Chinese building things, and how's that going to affect quality? And we answered that question. And then you went in the other direction of, well, they're going to knock everything off. Well, okay, you didn't ask us that. That wasn't the question.
Good point. Touche.
Joe.
You know what, Mike? We're going to wrap up here, but Joe and I talk all the time, and we do this. We spar back and forth with ideas, and we probably didn't touch everything that we wanted to talk about with you. I would actually like to invite you back. I will send you some information about having you back on the show, and we can continue with this conversation again. And I'm gonna present this to both you, Joe, you and Mike. If you know a manufacturer representative that would come on the show and talk with us, reach out to me. From Honda, Yamaha, KTM, Suzuki, Kawasaki, whoever. So that we can further the conversation and get a little different perspective other than ours. That would be great. I would really appreciate that. Okay. Joe?
I know some people at the place that still makes sport quads.
Nice. And we want to make it hospitable and welcoming them. We don't want to beat them up too bad. So, Joe Tully, as always, brother, thank you so much for coming on the show. We appreciate everything that you do in the industry. ATV On Demand, UTV On Demand. Go subscribe and watch the videos. We need more and more of that. Mike Walsh from Walsh Racecraft. Keep building quality parts. Sidebar, I got to work on a machine that had some of your product on it, and some A-arms. I have questions, but that's for you and me at a later date. And you can answer those for me, because I think it's motocross related versus off-road related, and you'll be able to fill in the blanks for me. But everybody, thank these gentlemen for coming on the show. We appreciate all they're doing for us. Oh, one last thing. Mike Walsh, are you going to make parts for... Oh, Mike Walsh is gone. Mike Walsh, are you going to make parts for three-wheelers? But that unfortunately, something happened. But Joe, again, thank you so much, brother. And
I have a quick question before we go.
Yes, sir.
Are 250R four-wheeler swing arms interchangeable with 250R three-wheeler swing arms?
There's a modification you can do to put a four-wheeler swing arm on a three-wheeler. We were talking about that with David Ham, and wrangle.
So it is possible to put a Walsh Racecraft, potentially 250R swing arm on your three-wheeler.
Yes. I don't
There you
know
go, Mike.
exactly
Sold you some parts. Sold you some parts, buddy.
Walsh just said he pushed the wrong button. But David Ham and everybody in the chat, if you're still listening, thank you guys so much. Please subscribe, share us, and reach out with more comments and more questions. I do read them. I may not always answer back, but I do read them. And I am always trying to bring you a better show. So thank you so much, everybody. And have an amazing someone was calling and he tried to get off the call so that he could keep it going, and it ended the link. But he's willing to come back. Joe, hopefully we'll see you next Sunday. Remember, everybody, subscribe and share us with your friends. Thank you, Joe. Have a great day, brother.
Thanks, brother. Have a good one. Happy weekend.